It was an ordinary Friday night and the house was empty except for me and my boyfriend Ryan. My dad was away on a business trip and my stepmom Melissa had planned to be gone for the weekend. With the entire house to ourselves, I was excited to spend uninterrupted time alone with Ryan. We'd been together for a while and every moment felt fresh and exciting. This was one of those rare opportunities to be completely free with each other, without the constant worry of someone barging in. We had settled on the couch to watch a movie, but it didn't take long before we got more comfortable, leaning closer and letting our hands wander. The movie soon faded into the background as our focus shifted entirely to each other. There was something thrilling about having the house to ourselves, and neither of us could resist it. Things escalated quickly, and we found ourselves completely lost in the moment, kissing with a passion that grew stronger with every passing second. Ryan's hands traced along my body, my heartbeat quickened, and the combination of being alone and the forbidden nature of it all made everything feel even more intense. But then, without any warning, the front doors swung open. My heart sank as we scrambled apart, but it was too late. Standing in the doorway was Melissa, my stepmom, staring right at us. Panic set in immediately. She wasn't supposed to be back. Why had she returned so early? For a moment everything felt frozen in place. I couldn't read Melissa's expression as she looked at us, disheveled and obviously caught in the act. I braced myself for her to yell, to scold me about respect and boundaries, but none of that happened. Instead, she quietly closed the door behind her and walked further into the room. My breath caught in my throat as I tried to anticipate what she was about to do. To my utter shock, Melissa didn't seem angry. In fact, there was something almost curious about the way she was looking at me. She sat down in the chair across from us, her gaze never breaking from mine. The air felt thick with tension, and I couldn't find the words to speak. My face burned with embarrassment, but her calm demeanor was throwing me off entirely. "Well," Melissa said, her tone casual and steady, "looks like you two are having some fun." Her words made my stomach drop. That was the last thing I expected to hear. Ryan and I exchanged a quick, panicked glance, both at a loss for words. I opened my mouth to apologize, but nothing came out. Melissa leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs, her eyes still fixed on me. "Don't worry," she continued, her tone almost playful. "I'm not upset, actually. I'm kind of impressed." I blinked, completely taken aback by her response. Impressed? What did she mean by that? My face grew even hotter, and I felt utterly lost for how to respond. Ryan shifted uncomfortably next to me, clearly just as confused as I was. Melissa's gaze moved between me and Ryan, her expression hard to decipher, a mixture of curiosity and something else I couldn't place. It made me uneasy, but there was a strange thrill to it as well. Melissa had always been somewhat of an enigma to me. Being in her late 30s, she was much younger than my dad, and carried an energy that made her feel less like a stepmom and more like someone closer to my own age. Now, sitting there, with her eyes on us, she seemed entirely different, as though the authority figure I had known was nowhere to be found. "I remember what it's like to be young," Melissa said, her voice smooth and slightly teasing. "You get caught up in the moment, right?" She smiled at me and a shiver ran down my spine. There was something unsettling about her gaze, yet I couldn't look away. "Relax," she added, noticing the tension between Ryan and me. "I'm not here to judge. In fact," she paused, her smile growing slightly wider, "I remember being in your shoes." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. My mind raced to make sense of what she was saying. Was she implying what I thought she was? The idea seemed impossible, yet her expression suggested she wasn't just talking about understanding. There was something deeper happening, something that made my stomach churn with anxiety and a flicker of excitement. Before I could fully process it, Melissa stood and walked toward the couch where Ryan and I sat. Her movements were graceful, and I suddenly noticed a presence about her I hadn't picked up on before. She stopped just in front of us, looking down with a knowing smile. Ryan tensed beside me, and I couldn't tell if it was from confusion, discomfort, or something else entirely. I felt the same strange tension growing between all of us. Melissa leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a soft tone. "Tell you what," she said, her words deliberate. "Why don't we keep this between us, our little secret?" "No one needs to know about what happened here today," Melissa said. I swallowed hard, my heart thudding in my chest. Was she serious? Was she truly suggesting we pretend none of this ever happened? The thought of keeping something like this a secret was both terrifying and oddly thrilling. But what choice did we have? It wasn't as if we could tell anyone about what had just occurred. And maybe, Melissa added, her voice dropping to a whisper as she leaned even closer, I could join you too. My breath caught, and I stared at her, stunned. She couldn't mean it. This had to be some kind of joke. But the expression on her face told me otherwise. This wasn't a misunderstanding or some bizarre attempt at humor. She was serious. Melissa was actually suggesting that she wanted to join us. I glanced at Ryan, hoping for some kind of reassurance, but he looked just as shocked as I felt. Neither of us could figure out what to say. The room suddenly felt unbearably small, the air dense with tension. Before I could fully process what was happening, Melissa stepped closer to Ryan, her hand reaching out to rest gently on his shoulder. My heart raced as I watched, unsure of how to react. Ryan turned to me, his wide eyes filled with confusion, but there was something else there too, something I couldn't quite place. It sent a strange, twisting feeling through my stomach. Everything was happening so quickly, and I didn't know how to stop it. The truth was, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to. Melissa's hand slid down Ryan's arm, and I could see the way his breath caught in his throat. She was standing so close now, and the air seemed charged with an unexplainable energy. It felt as though I were watching a surreal dream unfold in slow motion, unable to intervene and unsure if I even wanted to. Before I could speak, Melissa leaned in toward Ryan, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered something too quiet for me to hear. Whatever she said made Ryan's eyes widen, and the tension between the three of us reached its breaking point. I had no idea what was going to happen next, but I knew that everything had already changed. The room felt like it was spinning, my thoughts a whirlwind as I tried to make sense of it all. Melissa's hand lingered on Ryan's arm, her presence so close that I could feel the warmth radiating off her. I should have stopped her. I should have said something, anything, to break the unbearable tension hanging in the air, but instead I sat frozen in place, as though my body no longer belonged to me. Ryan looked at me, his expression torn between shock and something else, something I couldn't quite define. There was an unmistakable flicker of excitement in his eyes, and it made my stomach twist in ways I didn't fully understand. Melissa finally stepped back slightly, her hand still resting lightly on Ryan's arm as she glanced between the two of us. Her smile was calm, almost reassuring, as though this was the most natural thing in the world. The room was so quiet that the sound of our breathing felt deafening, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I can tell you're both surprised, Melissa said softly, her voice smooth and composed. But there's no need to be nervous. We're all adults here, aren't we? Her gaze shifted between Ryan and me, and I felt the weight of her eyes settle on me, making my skin tingle with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside me, clearly unsure of how to respond. He glanced at me, silently searching for some kind of guidance, but I had none to give him. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I should have done something, said something to stop this from going any further, but the thrill of the situation clouded my judgment, leaving me paralyzed. Sensing our hesitation, Melissa leaned in closer. Her hand moved down Ryan's arm until it rested lightly on his leg. I saw the way his muscles tensed under her touch, and a shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't teasing anymore. She was serious. "What do you say?" she asked, her voice low and seductive. "No need to be shy. We're just having a little fun, right?" Her smile widened slightly, and I could feel the tension in the room grow even heavier. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as I struggled to find the words to respond. My mind was a blur, filled with too many conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her to stop and leave before this went any further, but another part of me, a part I didn't fully understand, was curious, tempted by the thrill of the unknown. Ryan's gaze stayed on me, waiting for me to make the next move. He was just as conflicted as I was, but I could tell that a part of him was drawn to the idea, just as I was. The tension between us was palpable, the weight of the decision pressing down on me like a physical force. Melissa's fingers shifted slightly, brushing against Ryan's leg, making my breath hitch. She was testing the waters, pushing the boundaries, to see how far we would let this go. and I wasn't sure how much longer I could resist. My heart raced, my thoughts tangled in confusion as I tried to figure out what to do. But before I could say a word, Melissa straightened up. Her smile never wavered as she stepped back from the couch, her movements deliberate and slow, as though giving us time to process what had just happened. "I'll let you two think about it," she said, her tone soft but filled with quiet confidence. "There's no rush. Just know that I'm here if you decide you want me to join." Her words hung in the air as she gave us both a lingering look, then turned and walked toward the stairs. As soon as she was gone, the silence in the room was deafening. I exhaled sharply, realizing I'd been holding my breath. My mind was spinning, my heart still racing in my chest as I tried to process what had just unfolded. I glanced at Ryan and he met my gaze, his eyes wide with a mix of confusion and something else, something I recognized because I felt it too. It was the strange thrill of what had just unfolded, the inexplicable excitement of being thrust into such an unexpected situation. Neither of us spoke for a long moment, the silence between us weighed down by the enormity of what had just occurred. I could see the hesitation in Ryan's expression, mirroring my own, but there was also a spark of curiosity, an undeniable pull of temptation we were both trying to ignore. "What just happened?" Ryan finally asked, his voice so soft it was almost a whisper. His question hung in the charged air, and I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what had just taken place, or what it meant for either of us. All I could be certain of was that nothing would ever be the same after this. "I don't know," I replied honestly, my voice trembling. I don't know." We stayed there for what felt like hours, the heavy tension lingering, the reality of everything slowly settling in. I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that my stepmom had walked in on us, seen everything, and then had offered to join us. It felt like a dream, something too bizarre to be real. But it wasn't a dream, it had happened, and now we had to decide what to do next. Ryan shifted beside me, and I felt his hand brush against mine. His fingers were warm, but they trembled slightly, a clear sign that he was just as shaken as I was. I turned to look at him, and for a moment, we locked eyes. The weight of the decision we faced pressed down on us like a physical force. "I don't know what to do," Ryan admitted quietly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. I didn't know what to do either. The lingering thrill of the situation coursed through me, but so did a deep confusion, a feeling of being completely unmoored, unsure of where the boundaries even lay anymore. We had crossed into unfamiliar territory, and I didn't know how to find my way out. Before either of us could say anything more, the sound of footsteps on the stairs made my heart leap. Melissa was coming back down. My pulse quickened, my mind still swirling with a chaotic mix of emotions as I braced myself for whatever came next. She appeared at the base of the stairs, her expression calm, her movements deliberate as she approached us. This time, there was no hesitation in her demeanor. She knew exactly what she wanted, and it was clear she wasn't planning to wait for us to make the next move. "Well?" she asked, her tone soft but laced with unmistakable confidence. "Have you made a decision?" I swallowed hard, my thoughts still spinning. I had no idea how to answer. Everything was happening so quickly, and I couldn't seem to think clearly. All I knew was that the air around us was electric, charged with a tension that was impossible to ignore. Ryan looked at me, his face a picture of uncertainty, but I saw something else there too, something that matched the storm of emotions I felt inside. There it was, the same thrill, the same magnetic pull of temptation, drawing us toward the unknown. We stood at the edge of something monumental, something that could shift everything, and in that moment I understood one thing with absolute clarity. No matter what happened next, there was no going back.